There's something about returning to a pipe that you don't often smoke. I haven't smoked this pipe in years and years, and it just feels so familiar. Feels like home. This was my first real pipe, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. There's quite a story that I know you want to hear. But first, welcome to the Gribbly Spolly Sunday Antisocial Hour. That time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. And if you are a piece of humanity with a question for me, leave it in the comments down below. Hashtag it. Hang on. Hashtag it. Ask Gribbs. I answer any questions, but today is going to be a little bit different. I haven't had time to go through all the comments from last week's video. Lost a bunch of subscribers. That's cool. That's fine. I welcome that. Those of you who are left, we're now closer. It's a closer circle. I appreciate it. So, I have a giant wedding coming up this weekend, and I know that I'm not going to have time or energy to sit down Sunday morning and do my usual Sunday antisocial. So I'm pre-recording. I'm not answering questions this week. I'm going to tell a story. When I first started getting into pipe videos, making pipe videos, I had been a pipe smoker for many years before that, but I started making pipe videos in 2015. And as one does when you get into the scene, when you get into the YTPC, you start buying more tobacco. And I would try different things and I would report on them on my channel. All these old videos are mostly lost now, gone to the cracks and crannies of wherever videos go on YouTube. Anyway, one of those videos was about a certain blend that was very popular at the time. And I had tried it and had a very bad experience. And so today we are going to retell the story that I originally titled Elizabethan Mixture is a Chemical Weapon. It was the video that put me on the map. I became a full-fledged YTPC pipe presenter with my video completely ragging Elizabethan Mixture for this terrible experience that I had. And it involved my Savinelli 920KS. This pipe I purchased from my local brick and mortar, which is B&B Tobacconists here in Asheville, North Carolina. No longer there, at least not in that form. And I saw this pipe on the rack after I had I just got enough pipe smoking under my belt to know that I really enjoyed it. And I saw this pipe on the rack and I thought, I have to have that pipe, and I brought it home, and here it is. In this pipe today, I am smoking Foundry, which after getting a little bit of age on it, is just delectable. I think that this is one of the better Englishes in my cellar right now, which by the way is an old Huggies box under my desk. But no, I'm an official presenter. It's definitely fancier than that. I'll just never show it to you. When I first got started, I was smoking almost entirely Old Limey Bastard, which is an English, still in my top 3 from that local brick and mortar, and occasionally an aromatic here and there. But I wanted to get up to speed with everybody else. I wanted to be a connoisseur. You had these big personalities in the YTPC. You had Matches with Haunted Bookshop. You had Tom, Northwest Pipe Smoker, with all of his Balkan blends, and you had Brad at Stuffin' Things with Elizabethan Mixture. So I watched Brad's video on Elizabethan Mixture, and the man had a stack of empty Elizabethan Mixture tins. Like the Romans could have raided his tin stack and used them to build a wall that would fend off the Scots. It was insane how much this man loved this tobacco. And I thought, why not add it to the order? So you know how it is when you get a box of tobaccos and you want to try everything at once, and I didn't have time to do it. There was all this stuff, but I had a wedding that weekend. Wedding photographers, I don't know if you know this about us, but we're just insufferable bastards that can never relax. That typically is the case with a lot of artist types that actually make it professionally. Not that I've ever really made it, but this is the choice that a wedding photographer, at least one with my personality type, has. You can either wait till the last minute to get everything ready and then you're super stressed and rushed getting ready on the day, like the morning of the wedding, or you can get everything ready ahead of time and then you're super stressed because you don't have anything to do and you're just sitting there with anxiety. Photography is the easy part. If you make it to being a professional photographer, you've got that down. The hard part is the logistics, is the stuff that keeps me up at night is, what if I have a flat tire? What if my car breaks down? What if I'm in a car wreck? What if a meteor falls on me on my way to the wedding? How am I going to explain that to the bride? So that morning I had everything pre-gamed and I was just like pacing like a cat in a cage, man. Like I could not relax because I'm worried about getting to this wedding, and you know, you don't want to go like 4 hours early and sit in your car. So anyway, I was hanging around the house that morning with nothing to do. So I thought, hey, why not open up this box? Why not give Elizabethan mixture a try? And so I took this pipe, my at the time, one of my nicest pipes, and I loaded it to the brim with Elizabethan mixture. Now, I don't know if you can tell by comparing this to my outsized noggin that this pipe has a very deep and wide bowl. And it's a conical bowl. It's bigger at the top than it is at the bottom. The other thing about wedding photographers is we developed some superstitions. One of mine is that I never really eat much before a wedding. Like I don't like to be real full at a wedding. And so that morning I had dry Cheerios, multigrain Cheerios. That was what I was eating at the time for my morning breakfast. And I have a 2-cup mug. It's like a ceramic mug. And I filled that up with Cheerios and ate it, and that was it. That was all I needed for breakfast that day. I was gonna be at the venue at about 1 o'clock. This was about 10 in the morning. So I thought, yeah, the bowl in this place is a big bowl. I'll fill it up. That'll definitely kill an hour sitting on the porch. Just a pleasant morning. I don't know what Elizabethan mixture is like today because you would have to put a gun to my head to make me smoke it again, but at the time it was this really finely cut ribbon tobacco, just like a lot of the other Dunhill stuff. And it packed very well. You could get a lot of tobacco in the bowl without making it too dense. And I loaded up that bowl and tamped it down. It was perfect pipe loading. You know, at the time, getting into the culture, you're still concerned about the mechanics of loading the bowl. It was just a beautiful bowl of tobacco. And I was sitting there in a rocking chair on the front porch, July morning, smoking Elizabethan mixture. And I was thinking, yeah, this is okay. It's got a tiny bit of spice, but mostly it's just like these sweet Virginias, kind of in some cases a little cloying compared to the rather acrid Englishes that I smoked at the time. In some cases it's a little much, but I could see how people really get into this, and I'm sitting there in the rocking chair. And then all of a sudden I felt a little swimmy. And I thought, well, that's weird. That's kind of strange. But at this point, I had been a pipe smoker for like 8 years. I had a YouTube channel about smoking pipes. I was experienced. I knew what I was doing, and you know, so it felt like a little bit of a nicotine hit. Like, oh, that's kind of strange that early in the bowl, you know. But whatever. And I don't specifically remember this, but I imagine I was sitting there in the rocking chair, like looking at tobaccoreviews.com on my phone. Like that's my favorite way to enjoy tobacco for the first time. Like you get your initial impressions, and then you're like, oh, how do I stack up against these other connoisseurs? What does my insight tell me about this tobacco that these noobs are missing? And I'm sitting there and I'm smoking it, and I'm thinking, you know, I haven't heard anybody say anything about this tobacco being like especially strong in the nicotine department. You know, I mean, it wasn't old Joe Krantz or Billy Budd or something matches would smoke. Like, it's just a normal tobacco. Dunhill, how much more mainstream can you get? And so I'm sitting there in the rocking chair, just rocking away, and I'm smoking my pipe, and I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm reading the tobacco reviews, and I'm rocking, and then I start to realize I'm not rocking. The chair is sitting still. It's the world that's rocking. And I thought, oh shit. Now, for those of you who are not smokers, you can get an overdose of nicotine in your system. And it doesn't usually happen to cigarette smokers. It might happen to vapors. I don't know. Those kids are doing crazy things these days with nicotine. But the point is, pipe tobacco and cigars are often much higher in nicotine. And you can get a little too much. And the feeling of having too much nicotine in your system is indescribably unpleasant. It's even worse for someone like me, because one of my deepest hatreds in life is vomiting, and the feeling of nicotine sickness is centered, is based, it builds around a deep and abiding nausea. But that's okay, that's all right. I'm smart, I'm a pipe presenter, I know what to do. So the first thing you do, if you're feeling this coming on, you put your pipe down, and then you go brush your teeth, wash your face, you get all the residue of the pipe smoke out of your soft tissues, you mouthwash, whatever. You wash your hands. I always wash my hands too, just in case. I don't know if it can come in through your hands, but whatever. And then you eat something sweet to give your stomach a little bit of like something to chew on, make things, you know, settle down a little bit. And I did all that. I came inside, I went through the motions, I used mouthwash, brushed my teeth, cleaned up, ate a little bit of dark chocolate, and I thought, like, close call. That was a close one. Gonna have to revisit Elizabethan mixture another time, right? But today I got stuff to focus on. So I went downstairs to where my formal clothes were in the dryer for my wedding attire, and I went downstairs with the laundry basket, and I put it on the floor, and I bent down, and I opened up the dryer door, and I reached in, and I almost threw up all over my wedding clothes. Now, it's important to note that at that point in my life, I had never thrown up as an adult. That's how much I hate throwing up. I had made it through all of college and into my 30s without ever throwing up. Now, I knew, and it's funny, when I made the first video, I know that I mentioned, hey, I've got a 1.5-year-old at this point, like, I know we're gonna get the stomach virus and we're all gonna be throwing up for days at a time, and I know that's coming. And it did, it definitely did. But at the time the story took place, I had been vomit-free since I myself had gotten the stomach virus as a child, and I was so proud of that fact, and I knew nothing could make me throw up, and I was right. I almost threw up, but I did not. What I did do was fall face first into the dryer. Like, clunked my head on the door and like stuck my head in, and I'm like, I like pushed myself out of the dryer. I'm like laying there on the basement floor, and I'm looking up at the floorboards of my house, and they're just spinning. I crawled back up the stairs into the house. I'm like literally doubled over, trying not to throw up, and I call out to my wife. I'm like, I'm gonna need some help here, and I staggered into the bedroom. I turned the air conditioning down to like -40, took off all my clothes, got in the bed, and just laid there and watched the room turn. Now at this point, it's like 11:30, and I'm supposed to be at the venue at 1. And my wife comes in the room and looks at me, and then she's like, oh shit. And I'm like, I knew, I was like, I've got to eat something. And my wife is like, I don't know if that's the best idea. I was like, no. This is not, like, I don't have a virus. Like, this is nicotine sickness. I need to eat something. Please make me some toast. So my wife goes away, and it feels like she's gone for months. Like, the room made several revolutions around the sun before she comes back in with a single piece of toast on a china plate. And she looks at me, and at this point, sweat is pouring off of me, and I'm shaking uncontrollably. And she's like, are you sure about this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure. I put the toast in my mouth. I put it on my tongue. No, my whole body convulsed. And it's like, we are not consuming anything right now. That is off the table. She looks at me and she's like, your eyes are green. I'm like, no, they're blue. I mean, surely my eye color has, she's like, no. The bags under your eyes that are normally like, you know, dark because you're an insomniac and you can't stop working all the time, they're dark green. She brought me a hand mirror. I looked like the creature from the Black Lagoon. So I'm like, I just lay back down. I'm like, you know what? Forget the toast. Bring me a bucket. I knew I wasn't going to throw up. I just needed something to hold. I just held the bucket. And I'm just like laying there in the bed in a fetal position, like rocking back and forth with this bucket. Now, I had had nicotine sickness before. I had gotten overwhelmed before by a big cigar or whatever, and I thought, it's okay, like, this is gonna pass. I was wrong. After like an hour of laying there sweating and holding my bucket, it was time to go. Like, I didn't have, my choice at that point was to call the bride and be like, hey, do you remember that wedding you were gonna have today? Like, I'm sorry I can't make it, but it's not like a family emergency or like I got in a car wreck. I tried a new tobacco. You know, surely you understand, this happens to everybody. Clearly, that wasn't an option. Like, if I was gonna be throwing up, it would be at the wedding. I don't remember putting on my formal clothes. I'm pretty sure I didn't tie the tie because I don't think I could have taken the like strict, it would have lost it right there. Like the minute you tighten that up, I would just, and I remember getting in the car with the bucket and thinking, I probably really shouldn't be driving right now. And I knew that I had to get some calories in me. I was like, you've got to, your mind over matter. Like, you've got to ration, your brain has to rationally tell the rest of your body it's got to get some calories. So I went to the gas station and I like stagger into the gas station and I'm looking at the Snickers bars thinking, if you can't eat a Snickers bar, something is really wrong with you. And I like picked up the Snickers bar and then like involuntarily my hand just put it back on the shelf. And I'm like walking around the gas station and I remember I got like a bottle of water and some gummy bears. Like the only thing that I could imagine putting in my mouth was gummy bears. I'm checking out and the clerk is like getting the gummy bears and like looking at me like, I think you've already had too many gummies. Like, I don't know what you were doing last night, but you have partied too hard, friend. But I get my gummy bears and I'm driving down the road and I open the package. I remember, I'll never forget opening this package of gummy bears and like weaving down the road in my car and I open them. I put like a gummy bear in my mouth and like immediately just spit it right back out. Couldn't take it. By the time I got to the venue, I was able to eat half a gummy bear at a time. Now this wedding was in July, and when I showed up, it was probably 90 degrees outside, and I'm there in my formal wear. I've got a vest on. I've got cameras hanging, multiple cameras. At the time I was shooting a Nikkor 80 to 200 2.8. This thing weighs like 10 pounds on one camera, and then on the other camera I've got a 17 to 55 2.8. This thing weighs like 9.5 pounds, and I'm standing there in a black vest, and the sun's just beating down on me. And in the vest pocket, I've got like a little bag of gummy bears, and I'm just like every 10 minutes or so, I'm just like. And for that wedding, we skipped the getting ready shots, the indoor stuff where the bride is putting on. No. I got there for the first look and the bride walks out into the yard. The sun is just blazing. She walks out into the yard in her wedding dress and everybody's oohing and ahhing and I'm there trying to get pictures and she looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm totally, I'm fine. I'm so excited to be here." And she's like, "Do you always sway when you're excited?" Oh yeah, your dress is beautiful." And so, we do that part and then I'm like getting ready. I'm like, "Okay, I'll see you over there at the, where we're gonna do the ceremony." And she's like, "Oh, we'll just take the shuttle." "The shuttle? No, I gotta go." No, we'll just take the shuttle." So I get on the shuttle and we're going down the city streets and we're just driving through the city streets and I'm like, holy shit. And I got my cameras and my gear. I'm just like holding it all, like literally just like physically holding it all together. Just like. So everybody gets lined up for the ceremony, right? And it's in front of this gazebo. But of course, we're not under the gazebo. We're in the full sun and there's chairs set up and it's grassy and it's like the July 45th or whatever, like those days in July where you just think it's never going to end and the sun is just sweltering down on us and I'm standing there and the sweat is just pouring off of me and then all of a sudden I realize that there is an odd smell and I'm like looking around, I'm like eating my gummy bears and like at this point I'm like taking a sip or two of water and I'm like, what is the smell? And then I realize it's me. My sweat smelled like Elizabethan mixture. My body was purging the Elizabethan mixture through my pores. In retrospect, I should have taken those sweaty wedding clothes and sent them to Brad at Stuff and Things and been like, "Add these to your Elizabethan mixture tin collection," because I was basically a human vessel for Elizabethan mixture. I made it through the day, but I would have these, I would feel, for a second, I would feel okay, and I would eat half a gummy, maybe even 75% of a gummy bear, and then I would have this reeling wave of nausea, and that went on for 6 more hours. Finally that evening, we're inside in a venue, it's dark, but I mean, there were DJ lights, so it wasn't really comfortable, but at least I wasn't hot. We were in the air conditioning, and I ate a piece of wedding cake, and that was the first thing I had managed to eat and keep down. My entire caloric intake that day was like 2 cups of dry Cheerios, a tiny piece of dark chocolate, like 7 gummy bears total, and a piece of wedding cake. At the time, I had only been a father for like 1.5 years, 2 years, and so life hadn't really happened to me yet, and so it was the first time I had ever almost really screwed up a wedding. I did, like during COVID, I had to miss a wedding because I was exposed. When I first made the video, I was like, I've never had to miss a wedding. Well, that's an unrealistic thing if this is gonna be your career, that things do happen. But at the time, I was mortified because it was the first time
I had ever not been on my game. And I got the pictures together, and I went through the whole after process. I edited them all and sent them to the bride, and she just loved it. She thought it was great. I have never looked at those pictures again. I have never opened that folder on my hard drive ever again because I was so upset. I did not make mistakes like that. I was always 100%, never phoned it in, always gave my clients the very best I could possibly put forward. Well, past Max, if you're watching, if you're out there in some other timeline watching this, let me tell you, buddy, humble yourself or God will do it for you using Elizabethan mixture. I hear that Elizabethan mixture is now a Peterson product and that they sold out, and I'm sure it is a perfectly blended tobacco and it is an excellent vapor and doesn't almost put anyone in the hospital at any point. It's probably so much better than it was. The ribbon cut is probably even finer, and it's sweet and it's spicy, but to quote Pulp Fiction, sewer rat might taste like pumpkin pie, but I'll never know. I gave the rest of the tin away. I don't remember who I disliked enough to give it to. It almost put me off of pipe smoking altogether. I did not smoke a pipe again for weeks and weeks because of that experience. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your pipes carefully and keep the ends out for the ties that bind.